On to another episode of Live Well Sister. It is your girl, Marcie Thomas, and I am really excited to be here with you for a very special conversation with a woman coming to us from across the pond. And in case you're wondering where across the pond is, I mean London. So, as you know, in this space, we love to talk about the things that help us to live well. And in this case, tonight, we're going to be talking about those things that allow us to take care of ourselves, which are all in the same vein. And I really love the work of our special guest. So without any further delay, I want to go ahead and introduce to you Chloe Pierre, who is the founder of Thy.self, which she was inspired to launch in August of 2018 after struggling to find a space that resonated with her within wellness. Chloe's mission is to make wellness more approachable and accessible to the people that its origins are derived from. Chloe started her career working in fashion PR and over the last decade has expanded her experience into marketing, where she now serves as a digital marketing consultant for some of the biggest global brands, including Nike, BBC, and H&M. Take Care. This beautiful book here is her debut. So without any further delay, welcome to the room, Chloe Pierre.
Hi, Marcie. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for being here. As I mentioned, and for those who had a chance to see the actual intro, a lot of the things that you talk about in the book are the things that Live Well is all about, because it really is a space for us to have a more balanced way of looking at what it means to live well or take care of ourselves.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm really proud to get here, but very honored for you to open and share this space with me, especially your collective as well. It's really important I personally think, for us to know and to have tools in which to take care of ourselves, to live better, and also to make that a part of our generational wealth, not just, financial wellness or financial assets.
I absolutely agree with you in that. And the one special thing about having you here speaking in this space is that you are from the UK. And as I was reading the book and as others read it, yes, there are things that might be specific to the UK, but really the stories and the things and the concepts that you're sharing are really universal. And so that shows us how we're more alike than we are different. And I love that.
Yeah, 100%. And that is definitely one of the goals. I mention it in the book. I think what has changed since 2018, what has changed specifically since 2020, is that we as a people have become to see each other less as threats, less as competition, and more that, unity actually takes us further. Unity is within us, and it doesn't matter where we are. We are spread across the diaspora. That is a word and a term that has great meaning. It's what I think is meant to bring us together, not to separate us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you have a very specific journey, your own journey, that led you to even pursuing this work through Thy.self and, Thy.self Men, which are all located at the bottom if you want to check out her work, but then also your debut book, Take Care. So what was it that led you into really pursuing a role in the wellness space?
Yeah, sure. So wellness for me was it just felt very unachievable or unattainable, should I say. As we see the wellness industry currently, if you Google what the top sites are, the likelihood of you finding immediately representation on those sites are very few and far between. I recognize that. I saw that. It quite frankly frustrated me to a very high degree, to the point where I thought, no, I have to do something about this. Even if I only reach one person, even if I reach 100 people, I don't need to have millions of followers. I don't need to have a community made up of millions of people. Of course, that would be nice. Um, but I thought maybe just taking a few people on this journey might create the change that I want to see. It might then allow me to educate not just other Black and women of color or people of color, but everyone outside of that bubble as well, on how to navigate wellness as an inclusive opportunity, an opportunity that everyone has a part in, that everyone should have access to. And these just fundamental ideals, I mean, they're not groundbreaking, but at the time that I started Thyself, it was never heard of. I remember starting Thyself 2020, the death of George Floyd, which had incredible ripple effects all the way to where we are in the UK. And outside of this, Europe uh, is a very palatable place. So when people had to find this information where they couldn't get away from it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
conversations, it was very uncomfortable place to be, but it meant that we was already doing the work. We could speak about it. We could speak about it in a way that resonated not just in the UK but externally. And that's when I would say we really saw a lot of growth. I started Thyself in October. I think it was the 16th of October 2018 that I did my first event. And we grew 200% overnight on Instagram. And then, of course, in 2020, we grew incredibly. Before, a couple of months before that happened, we were in New York doing events, we were in Berlin doing
Mm-hmm.
events. And it just goes to show that whilst it's not breaking, it's very much needed. And it's a conversation that needs to happen in order for people to kind of wake up, really.
Right, I definitely agree with you because as we were all sitting at home and, I was working from home. I currently work from home as well, so I've been in that bubble for a while. But we're working from home. We're taking in this endless cycle of news. We're seeing everything that's going on around us, and it was important to really begin to think about how can we take care of ourselves in ways that might be different from what we've done in the past because we couldn't, go out and go to the gym or, some of these other things or go hang with friends that may make us feel good, being in community in that way. So I think, like even this community started around that time frame.
Yeah.
Another space I have called BGC Book Club definitely in April of 2020. So it was a time for us to start looking at different ways to take care of ourselves. Now, how do you specifically, Chloe, how do you define wellness? Because I know there's so many different definitions of what it really means, to what wellness means or what self-care means. What
Mhm.
exactly does it mean to you by your definition?
Yeah, for me, wellness is an action. It's an action to live better. It's incorporating what I put in the book as 8 dimensions of wellness. And that is, to name a few, it could be vocational, it could be spiritual, emotional, physical, uh, environmental. I do layer these out and kind of, speak about them a little bit more in depth in the book just to help people understand what they are. But it's incorporating all those things, being aware of them, and then translating that into your own life. I think the key for me is, yes, wellness is an action, but it needs to be consistent, and you need to find some sustainability in it being consistent. Um, so yeah, wellness for me is an action. It's an awareness of living better, um, by proxy doing better as well. But it's an overall lifestyle, and most definitely it's a choice.
All right. I love sustainability. I love the idea of it, of sustainable self care, because the reality of it is everybody can't afford to go, on these grand, events, or, get a massage once a month, or, some of the things
Yeah.
that we might see that come off as wellness for self-care, but sustainable self-care. Tell us a little bit more about what you mean by sustainable.
Yeah, so sustainable to me means that you can keep it going a lot longer. It's more consistent. It doesn't require you to be too out of your comfort zone. I think the action should be out of your comfort zone for sure, eventually, if you're getting to that point. But I don't think your accessibility to it shouldn't be too out of your comfort zone. I do think, as people in general, and I wouldn't say it's just a race issue, but I just think on a class level, class is a massive factor here in the UK. What I would say is that we don't put enough priority into our health and our wellness. Not that at that point it's, final and we can't do anything about it, but we could be catching these things earlier, whether that's our health. I did a recent campaign in the UK around breast cancer, and how, yes, Black women are affected by breast cancer. A lot of us, could catch it earlier than stage 4. Stage 4 is obviously very terminal, and there's just a lot of work and a lot of conversations that we need to have. But when it comes to sustainable wellness, if we're checking ourselves much more regularly, if we're not waiting for us to feel a lump, or to feel or to see any differences in our body, if we're not waiting for someone to say it's okay for us to go and take care of ourselves, it's okay for us to take a break and to get out and be in nature, you know we need to figure out what sustainability is to us on a global level, on a community level, but also on an individual level. So yeah, sustainability just means making sure that you can do it. It has longevity. And, to be quite honest, is that it's important and relative to you. I think a lot of people see self-care, and, I'm definitely at times part of this issue. To be a part of it, you almost, partake in it to some degree. But what I will say is that I don't live outside of my means by any means, actually. So for me, yes, I have worked to the point that I can maintain having a massage once every month, and to me that's very important because of, being postpartum and other things. So I try and live that life and allow people to see that. But I think when you go online, when you look at what wellness is, when you look at sustainability in general, even if we look at it on the kind of climate front, which everyone knows it to be, it does feel very unachievable, unattainable, a little bit out of everyone's reach. But if you find smaller ways to access it, you can do it. And it's just as important, and it's just as memorable, and it has great impact because it's true to you.
Right. And that true to you is really important. Now, one of the things you do talk about in the book as well is authenticity, is,
Yeah.
being our authentic selves. So, if going and, well, we'll get into this in a minute, but if going and doing yoga and stretching yourself like a pretzel isn't authentic to you, why go do that?
Yeah.
Find something that really suits who you are as a person, and that is a reflection of not just the person that you are, but even sometimes the person that you're aspiring to become.
Exactly. And what I love as well, that in addition to who you are currently and who you want to be, like, what actually matters to you? What are your morals? What are your values? That is what it's important to me. I do yoga events. I collaborate with a lot of people in yoga. I wear yoga pants. I get it, but I'm not into yoga. Like, it does not work for my body. Um, but that also means that by doing that and trying that and realizing that doesn't work for me, then I've tried maybe Pilates, or I've looked at other ways of expression, of stretching. And, also the yoga that we see, in the mainstream, for example, is not the only form of yoga. So,
Right.
I implore people to go on a journey. And that's what I did. I didn't just wake up and get frustrated and, decide to create this. I lived it for about 2 years when I was really struggling. And I went on my wellness journey. I figured out what worked for me and what didn't. I figured that yoga is so mainstream that is quite problematic, and I do speak about that in the book, so I won't go into that too much today. So I thought, okay, what else can I do? And also, how can I get this information out to other people? They should know that yoga isn't like a one step, one size fits all entry to wellness. And so I discovered what wellness was for me firsthand. Then I shared it with my community. Now we're doing it with the book. Um, yeah, that's sustainable to me as well.
Yes, absolutely. Just to figure those things out, be true to yourself, and, excuse me, in that process, and just to go from there. And I love the idea of sharing with others. But just a little bit, because another thing, and I told you this offline, I love the way that you structure the book, because yes, there are tips, and we'll talk about a few of those things in this conversation. But you also delve into some of the political, the how, the why, how we got to this space where we are. And I really love the chapter where you talk about the history of self-care, because what it's been what we've come to believe it to be historically, and what it really is, are not always in alignment.
Yeah. And I think, if I'm completely honest, reflecting on the book as well, there's so much of our history that we just won't be able to place truth to, because sometimes that's just life. Sometimes I do believe most of the time how do I say it? It's a purposeful act in order to confuse people and to kind of push people away from their truths. But essentially, if we embody it, wellness is a part of every single one of us. It wasn't found in the US or the UK or all these amazing but also problematic Western countries. It derived from real places, real places. It derived from places that have, a lot of meaning, that have been discarded over time, that have had their histories wiped away. And that's the beauty of, discovering the history of wellness. It's knowing that it is a part of every single person on this planet, that we all have a part to play in it. What I loved is the research part of doing this book. So naturally, a lot of things are going to go back to the USA. That's why I couldn't just write it, of course, write it from the UK lens, but also I couldn't exclude anyone. And I think
Right.
far too often, especially when we're speaking about specific histories, we are tend to be fed into one ideal. And I've grown up learning a lot about, the African American experience. And without it, I don't know if I would be so knowledgeable. I don't think I would be able to speak the way I can and do about our histories. But I think there's such a missing link as well when it comes to other places in the diaspora as well. If we think about Brazil, which is one of the biggest you know, slave ports, why do we not hear enough about those experiences? From a UK lens, it's very much hush hush. My family came to the UK by way of the Caribbean, which is obviously a colony. And, that experience doesn't get spoken about a lot until recently,
Right.
So I think it's really important for us to tap into what wellness is, what the history looks like from our own, but also go out and look for others. And then we will find truth in it, and it will make sense because it will be relative to our own.
Yes, yes. And it's funny that you mentioned Brazil, because when I was in the third grade, I actually did a report about Brazil. And it's so crazy. I'm not gonna, well, I don't have a problem saying my age. I'm 56 years old.
Yes,
So,
and
this was
beautiful.
a long time ago, before, we had all this social media, internet, all that stuff. But it's so funny, because when I think back to that report that I did, I don't remember Black people when I was doing my research. But now, to be at this big age and realize that, hey, wait a minute, there are a lot of Black people in Brazil.
Yes.
It's a desire of mine to actually go there, just because it's like, okay, I did all this. We were talking about food and different things that may have been historical sites and stuff like that. But where were the Black people in that study at that time? So when you mentioned that, that brought that back to mind. But one of the things, and here in the U.S., we're currently at the tail end of Black August, which is a time where we talk about liberation and things of that nature, just in the Black community. And there are a lot of things that happen in the month of August here in the U.S. as it pertains to that. In the history part, you talk about the Black Panthers and how they embraced wellness.
And how that was such a global movement. And, even in 2020, when I was writing this book, I was like, wow, look what they did. It's tangible. And they have to be listed as part of that, that heritage, that, understanding of wellness. Not only did they bring it to Black communities when they really needed it the most, but I just feel as if, they owned it in their own way. They didn't say, we've been taught this via this avenue and we're going to remix it for ourselves. No, they took it, they owned it, they built their own programs around it. And for it being so long ago, it's just very, very inspiring. It was very much like, an inspiring piece for me to read and to, take tips from, especially when building my own community.
Yes, yes. Now, in the book, I also love that you are not just talking about yourself and your work. You also pay honor to other women who are doing great work in this wellness space, Black women from across the diaspora. And for me, it was exciting because some of the names I knew, of course, and then some of them I didn't. So, you can just name maybe one or two people that you think, besides yourself, that we need to be on the lookout for on a global scale.
I feel like if I was to write another book, I'd probably need to just hone in on that alone. There wasn't enough time. Obviously, publishing means that I was on a deadline, and life meant it was a lot. But I feel like there's so many more people to name and kind of hold up and champion. The first person or the first kind of collective that comes into mind is the BWID study, and that's the Black women's, I think it's research into depression for Black women, and it's mainly based in the UK, but that is honestly, it's very profound because there is not enough funding in the UK, in Europe, around Black people, Black women, and our health, especially when it pertains to mental health. So they are an incredible organization that I think everyone should know about. When it comes to other individuals, my God, there are so many. I feel like opening up this can of worms, which is Take Care, the book, I've discovered so many. There's an incredible lady on Instagram, on TikTok, I can't remember her name, but there's so many. I think if I can bring out the book, I've got so many names here, but there's too many. There's too many. And that is what is fantastic.
You gave us a good one to start. So everybody read the book. But one that just is jumping out at me because, of course, everybody knows her is Serena Williams. You do mention her.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody kind of knows them, but just, them being on that journey and the things that they do and how, we didn't even necessarily think about ourselves as tennis players. But now they've done it, and you beginning to see more and more, even though there were some Black female tennis players before them, but they were the ones that really brought it to the forefront that we could see that. And whether it's starting beauty businesses or whatever,
being a politician, because that is not an easy task. I'm not gonna lie, I have so much respect that I would never want to go into that field. I just prefer to talk about it from my lens and my little seat in the corner. But yeah, there's so many female Black politicians globally, so many people. I didn't even put it in the book, but there's so many people. There's a lady, I think her name was Carol. She actually came to the UK from the US, and she set up some of the foundations for what the UK has in terms of Black culture today. So that is, you know, she was part of the Notting Hill Carnival initially, that board, and that's obviously monumental for Black people here in the UK. She set up a lot of foundations in terms of our schooling, our curriculums, and I love the fact that she went from one Western country to another and made a mark. It's just beautiful.
Yes, that is, and because, as I said earlier on, we are more alike than we are different. Because I was
Yeah.
in the Air Force for several years and I was stationed in Spain. And I can remember the first time I had a chance to come to England and I was riding around and I saw like Black hair salons and stuff. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I'm like, okay, so we are here. Because, of
You're a
course,
good,
I
yeah,
didn't see that in Spain. But when I got to the UK, I'm like, oh, okay, so we are
yeah.
here. So that
And
was
that's another thing that I noticed as well with my travels, that there's Black communities everywhere, but how do we access them? How do we kind of pay homage? How do we connect with them? It's just so important to do all of those things in order for us to grow. And there's a part in the book where I do mention some of the beauty channels globally that people can access. I thought that was really important to do as well. It's connecting us through beauty, which is really important as a collective, as a community. But it's also championing the people that are going out their way, because that in itself is not an easy business to be as a Black person, a Black female, woman of color. It's really not, even though the products are for us.
right.
You know, we are the biggest consumer.
Right, that is so true. We spend lots and lots of money, on this hair, making sure this skin, getting lipsticks and things that, suit our melanin and all of that. And, I do love that in the book you dedicate a whole chapter to talking about beauty, whether it is our hair or our skin, but even things, that we see nowadays, we see a lot of body positivity.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about your view on what that is all about.
Again, I like to draw everything back to self. So when it comes to body positivity, it's how you feel about yours. I definitely see from being online and spending a lot of time online that there's a lot of projection going on. It can seem quite negative, but that is, at the end of the day, it's not a robot. Sometimes it is, but most of the time, it's not a robot behind the screen. It's a person, and they're translating their feelings about themselves through the internet onto someone else. Now, if we focus on ourselves when it comes to body positivity, what do we like and what do we feel uncomfortable with about our bodies? Spending that time getting to know your body, getting to cherish the fact that, regardless of what it looks like and what society pressures there are, what does your body do for you? What do these limbs and these body parts do for you? How grateful are you for them to be working? How grateful are you for them to not be working? Because, when it comes to disabilities or illness, it really brings things back home, and, the truths within yourself that, yes, your body may not look like this said celebrity or this person in the public eye, but it's yours, and it's
Right.
your role and your responsibility to take care of it. And without that, you can't be on the internet, you can't be searching these things. So just bring it back. Think about what works for you. I think there's a lot to be discussed about when it comes to societal pressures, and especially as how much they affect, and I won't say negatively or positively, but how they affect Black women and young Black women and older Black women, and how we are stereotyped and how we stereotype ourselves, and the kind of language that we use, and how much we judge each other and judge ourselves. There's so much to learn about that. But again, I do think that is a part of your bigger wellness journey. I've had times when I've been incredibly positive about my body, and I've had times when I haven't. And it's a roller coaster. It goes up and down. But if you bring yourself back to your truths, if you have a tool book like the book,
Yes.
to bring you back to these things, if you have a notebook that you're working from alongside the book, you have a toolbox. Then you have something that can bring you back when you're feeling lost. And there's a lot of uncertainty, and there's a lot of opportunity to feel lost. So just find yourself again.
Yes, and I mean that is so important to find yourself again, because there are so many messages that we receive. You know, once upon a time, our shapes weren't necessarily, considered beautiful, but now it's like other people are going and getting surgery to have shapes that look like ours, or fuller lips, or whatever the case may be. Or like one of the instances you mentioned in the book, they're braiding their hair and trying to take credit for it when we've been doing that since the beginning of time. So it can be kind of disheartening, on the one hand, to be kind of held up like an ideal, but on the other hand, to be, not considered beautiful. It's a
And
strange.
discredited, quite simply. And I feel like what people don't take into account is that by discrediting one group or one generation of people, you're discrediting our whole lineage. And that does hurt. And that does take some time to get round. We've had generations, thousands of years of being told we're not beautiful, only for then to be in 20 whatever, and someone to say, or a group of people to say, well, I think that's pretty cool, so I'm gonna inject my lips and do this to my body to mimic that. But I don't want the other things that come with it. I'm not going to put credit to where that actually originated from. And whilst I don't like to focus on too much what other people are doing and what other demographics are doing, and I don't believe in seeking approval from other demographics and other races and I don't believe in it. But what I would like people to do is, you have your hair like this, own it, trademark it, stamp it, do whatever you have to do it, and then keep it going and pass it on to the next person. And like, take ownership of what we're doing, take ownership of what we believe is ours. It's, shea butter is doing really well. By next year, it's going to be on, I don't know what the biggest channel, like, I don't know, ABC or something. People are going to be talking about shea butter is a fake, like the new trend. And it's like, this has come from like decades
Right.
of us growing the products, like, you know, manufacturing it, selling it. Loads of people that I know go to Ghana and they bring it back for me, and that's a treat. But soon someone else is going to jump on to that and say, we created it in, I don't know, Mayfair of London, and we are selling it, and it's got this cute package on it, and we're going to resell it at like this extortionate amount. We're not going to credit where it came from and the origins and what we've done to source it. Yeah, all of
Yeah,
that,
that,
it upsets me.
yeah, and I mean that's true. And to be honest, they already know.
Yeah.
I was thinking a few years ago, there was this viral video of, it was a Caucasian woman who was like, "Y'all didn't tell me about the butters, like the shea butter, the cocoa butter, all that stuff." I'm like, "Oh Lord."
Here we go. Here we go. But I also think, again, whilst I don't think we should, look for approval, I don't think we should also be leaning into like the sensations around it as well, because again, that's what people feed on. If we just hone into like what's important to us, how do we like educate and communicate with one another? And I'm not saying that, all skin folk are kin folk. I'm not saying that, but the more you put into your own, the more, you'll see a difference. And, we can all communicate with each other and we can do better. And that might change the outlook that every single person has. That is better than, sitting on the sidelines, criticizing each other without doing any work. Yeah, there's just too many examples to go into.
That is so true. Now, one of the things, of course, you're teaching lessons and you are in the process of formulating community, or you have formulated community and continuing to grow that. I think that that's so important because, you do a lot of research and study, and a lot of us have been hearing about isolation and how isolation is really hurting people. And that even though at the end of the day, our self-care journey is an individual journey, are parts of that that can be done in the space of a collective. So, just how do you feel about that, or why was it important for you to begin to develop that collective healing type of platform?
I personally believe that, I could have had all of these things, these thoughts, and I could have kept it to myself. And yeah, I would have been enriched, and I could have probably sold it in an e-course or a masterclass and made a bit of change, but I wouldn't have felt fulfilled. I
Mhm.
wouldn't see the global change that I want to see. And I want to see that even before having my son. I want to see that for each other. I want to see a better global community of Black and women of color, people of color. I want to see that. I think we deserve to see that. We've done an incredible amount of work building up so many different societies that we ought to put some of that time and that effort as we grow, as generations grow. We ought to see that. We ought to, give that a chance. So for me, I'm a marketer. I love communication. And the more that I did research into that, not only did I find out that and it's not crazy, but sometimes a penny drops and that, you can't create a movement by yourself.
Right.
Yes, I created thyself and yes, I'm spared in it, but I'm not doing it by myself. It's everyone that clicks sign up for a newsletter, it's everyone that attends an event, it's everyone that drops a comment or shares a post or invites me to be on their incredible podcasts and chats. That's what is important. And community actually derives from the Latin word communication actually derives from the Latin word of community, so it's intrinsically linked, and we should start believing in that and start utilizing it for good. I think many people use it for many different ways, but I want to stick on the path and talk about it from, doing the good, seeing the change that I want to see. So yeah, that's why it was important. And I just feel as if we can do so much work if we're doing it together.
Yes.
And especially when it comes to healing. Some of us can heal in silence, but you can't heal completely in isolation. You still have to, that's a massive part of wellness as well. I do believe a lot of it has to happen in isolation, but to access another part of it, another level, and wellness is about levels as adventure, essentially as well. Doing that collectively with people that resonate with you. I wouldn't say look like you all the time, but I think it's people that resonate with you, people that have the same kind of value and the same kind of morals. And you might find that these aren't always people that look like you, share the same complexion or the same race or the same identity. But that's why books like this are important for everyone to read, is that we can come together on value. And that is what eventual growth would look like. But I think we need to start in communities of our own, in isolation to some degree, and see how that goes. We've never really given it a chance.
I love it. I love it. I also love the fact that you have incorporated men into your platform, because oftentimes when we hear of self-care or wellness or whatever, we tend to think about women. And I mean, there are a lot of reasons why women need to put themselves first. You do talk in the book about, mothers and things like that, because mothers or caregivers in any fashion are doing so much for everybody else that it becomes almost critical to put your mask on first at
Yeah.
different times. But I love the fact that you do also incorporate men. Now, was that before you became a boy mom or because you became a boy mom?
No, it was way before. So I'm only a
Okay.
boy mom now of 2 years.
Okay.
So I had thyself way before that and thyself men before that. I think in all honesty, what drew me to do that is that we had a growing male audience and a male following. And as much as I love them on that platform, I think that there's a lot of information and there's conversations that need to be had specifically in groups section by gender. I think there's a lot of work to be had and a lot of conversations to be had in that space. So that's why I wanted to do that and to be able to tailor the content for that purpose. I don't believe that all of our followers on thyself men are men. And I don't think all of the followers that we have on thyself are just women. But I wanted to create almost a safe space for men to have those conversations and to do the work. What I will say is that it's a lot of work, and I am just trying to prioritize my workload because, like I said before, a lot of us, and in the book as well, I said that you know, a lot of us are mothers. It doesn't mean that we actually have to bear children to be a mother. A lot of us were assigned that role from very early on. Some of us have it as an innate quality within us. And I just think that there's a lot of work to be done, but sometimes we need to pass that over. We need to give it to the people that are responsible for it. I love Black men. I'm intrinsically attracted to them, and I think that they are gorgeous and, you know, incredible. But there are some, and a growing number, that require a lot of support. And I
Mm-hmm.
think they need to go out and do that just as much as I went out and sought the help that I needed. They need to do that. And a woman cannot hold their hand and leave them there, regardless of what race she is. She cannot do that. It needs to be them. So, as much as I've created that platform and I will continue to put into it, I think there's still a lot of work that men need to do. And I want to see them do more when it comes to their mental health, you know?
And I'm going to have to give you a slow clap on that. Because, you know, as a woman, and I am a single woman, oftentimes we hear so much, and you don't really necessarily talk about this in the book, but this is just a sidebar. We hear so much about what we need to do, how we need to change, how we need to improve, how we need to do the work to prepare ourselves to be partnered. But we don't hear those same types of messages being directed toward men. So it's like, so you want a bunch of, you know, healthy, self-aware women in relationships with men who aren't healthy and
And that
self-aware?
is what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing. I've gone through it myself plenty of times. And it makes, not only am I creating this platform, but, you know, I am now doing it more intentionally because I have a child and because I have a son. And I will not be able to close my eyes in thinking I've raised just what I've seen or what I've grown up around. I want him to do better, not only for, you know, the rest of the world and the rest of women around him, but, you know, for the everyone, and also for himself, you know. It's important. You know, I have this story, and I actually went to the local clinic with him yesterday just for a 2-year checkup. And, you know, he loves playing with dolls, and my family was like, "Oh no, you know, he can play with them, but we wouldn't have one in the house." And I've got like a gift card right here, and I'm like, Before I finish today, I'm going to buy him a dolly and a pram." Because what message am I sending? That he can have children, but he doesn't necessarily have to take the responsibility of taking care of them. So I am doing all of this work for the next 18 years plus, for him to just take a seat back and watch, and sometimes even create havoc. There's a lot of guys out there, I'm not going to say especially, there's a lot of Black men out there that are creating havoc and not having to take responsibility for that. And I think that is a massive part of why their well-being and their wellness and their mental health is struggling. Like, now is the time.
Mm-hmm. So thank you. Thank you. That is so powerful and so important. Now, in the book, as I mentioned, you have like different tools or tips or ways that we can work on our own wellness or well-being. I'm not going, we can't get into all of them because we don't have time, but there are specific things that you mentioned. It's like a set of 5. One starts with routines. So,
Mm,
what is the importance of having a routine? And sidebar, I just recently put together a little list of for myself of the routines that
good.
I need to inhabit. So that was in the last couple of weeks. So this is timely. But what do you mean by the importance of having routines?
It's structure. And a lot of people, myself included, for a long time ran away from structure, but it is foundational. It's what gives us clarity. Doing things on the whim. And you know what? I love to be a creative. I'm a creative in every part of life. You know, I like to mix things up a little bit, but having some structure means that you can veer off outside of that comfortably, rather than, you know, having lots of other things, you know, kind of fall to the wayside. So structure is routine. It gives you clarity. It keeps you sane to a massive degree. And it gives you purpose as well, knowing what you have to do versus what you want to do, and kind of navigating that process. I personally think is a way to a more healthier, more fulfilled life, instead of just doing what we're told to do, or, you know, going completely in the opposite way and acting so free that, you know, a lot of the things that we care about diminish.
Yes, just and more specifically, like morning routines and evening routines. Like, what do you do when you get up in the morning? What do you do before you go to bed? That was the list that I made for myself because I can admit that even though I'm former military, there was a certain level of structure there, but
Yeah.
I'm many years removed. So on my own, sometimes I don't do that, and I just think that is important to kind of have these things that you're going to do at the beginning and the end of the day to kind of set the tone for what each day looks like.
I think I just wanted to add with that as well. A lot of us do things and we don't realize what we're doing because we're almost on autopilot. So being able to write down what is your current routine, what do you do, and then kind of like navigate that and see, oh, what am I doing that I probably don't recognize that I'm doing that is not benefiting me or does benefit me, and I need to do more of that. So just being more self-aware.
That's good. That's good. Another thing you talk about is meditation,
Yes.
which is not yoga, but meditation.
Yeah, oh, completely different. And that's another thing, a misconception. And I think that's because of the way that the industry has, the wellness industry has packaged it. But meditation is so different. And the fact is that meditation is accessible to anyone at any time. We don't have to follow a guide. It could just be breathing, which is breath work is a massive form of meditation. And some people say breathing, I breathe all the time, but are you actually breathing? What is the quality of your breath? How does it serve you? Doing all of that, giving yourself time to question yourself while being at peace, while being stationary, collecting your thoughts, being aware of them and processing them is a form of meditation. Not enough people have access to that or allow themselves to have access to it. And what I want to empower is everyone reading this book or on this chat is that, you give yourself time to just think or to allow your thoughts to be, recognize them, breathe through them, let them go, choose what you're going to keep, and continue to do that. I think it's giving yourself time in a world where, yeah, time is so hard to come by, but you
Right.
can give yourself time.
Right, and that's powerful. Just last week, I was talking to I have a day job. I was talking to my coworker, and she was saying she had an opportunity to do some meditation for the first time, and she said, "Oh, it just meant so much." She said, "I wound up in tears, all
Yes.
of this, and and this is, doesn't have anything to do with religion or spiritual practices or anything like that, but she does identify as a Christian." And what I said to her, I was like, as a Christian, we're always taught, pray, 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 pray. But when you can sit and meditate, that's the time to listen. That's the time to download. So
Yeah.
that's what I think is so powerful in that meditation space, regardless of what your spiritual beliefs are.
Yeah, and maybe that's a way of connecting with your spiritual beliefs as well. But I think we've been told, I've been brought up Christian, Catholic specifically, that it is pray, pray, pray. There's not a lot of reflection that goes on. And I think that's what is missing. And that's what meditation allows you to do, is to reflect and to do it gracefully, mindfully, and truthfully without judgment, because you're doing it with yourself. You're recognizing the judgment and then you're choosing what to do with it. Again, not enough people have access to that, and more should.
Yes, I agree. Next is journaling/goal setting.
Yes. So they are different. Journaling is putting down your notes, putting down your thoughts, writing them down. It's not necessarily reflecting on them straight away, but it's being able to express them. It's like a form of expression. Goal setting can be a form of expression, but what I speak about in the book is how, especially as Black women, we're always on the go. We're always doing things. We're always, taking on tasks which are and aren't ours. Goal setting is being able, in its most pure form, is actually figuring out what matters to us. So I spoke about it before, our morals, our value systems, and trying to craft goals that are realistic, but also can be mindful and can help our well-being and our wellness journey going forward, rather than looking at the societal pressures or what we think we need to do. So both, I believe, are quite solitary tasks. They
Yes.
need to be solitary for a reason, is to block out the noise. So I implore everyone to try it. Journaling for a long time didn't suit me at all. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't think it was for me. But once I started using it as a form of therapy, that helped. I looked at
Yes.
a circumstance and I broke down why I got to this point, what the thoughts are that come up for me when I have those circumstances, and which thoughts, and what do I say and why do I say it? Also,
Mhm.
are these truth or are they fiction?
Mhm.
So yeah, so just having, yeah, those kind of moments to yourself are really, really key to see you grow and to see you be happy in your own skin.
Absolutely. I agree. Because, well, obviously, you all can't see it, but like here next to me on this desk, I have a drawer full of journals. So I believe in it, even though I am not consistent. I will admit that because sometimes life just gets in the way. And I mean, you can do them in a book form. There are, digital journals. There are a lot of different ways you can keep your thoughts. You can, speak into a microphone and save those voice notes. I mean, there are a lot of ways that you can do that. So I think that that's good. Movement is also on the list.
Oh, yeah. That's because where we are now in life is that we don't move enough. I'm all for having like movement meetings.
Right.
We're trying to figure out how to make that work digitally because that's what we can do the next time we chat. But yeah, I think movement is really important. We're so disconnected from our bodies. It's actually insane. And I think a lot of the things that we do, and I'm not talking self-harm or anything triggering in that space, but there's a lot of things we do because we're not connected to our bodies. So we're using them as a way of feeling, but not necessarily in the most productive and safe for us. So yeah, moving is free, moving is empowering, and we should be moving our bodies more. If we look back at where we came from, we were moving more, and we didn't have time to be unhappy about other things, about body positivity and things like this, because we were moving and we had things to do. So the more that we move, I think the more we'll get to the root cause of, our purpose, what matters to us, how we move forward.
Right. Well, one thing, I have a couple of suggestions in that regard, even during the day. Well, one thing on this side of me,
Mhm.
I actually have like a standing desk and I got one of those
Amazing.
treadmills that's underneath it. So I can get on there and kind of walk and talk at the same time, or walk and work at the same time. So that's the way to keep me from sitting in this spot all day, every day. And it's easy to do. And then another thing, in my day job, we do a lot of walking meetings. So we just hop on a Zoom, something
Nice.
like that, or, it might be, any type of thing that allows you to just basically have a conversation. Sometimes we're looking at each other, sometimes we're not, but we'll just say, hey, we're going to meet for 30 minutes and you take a walk and I take a walk and we have this conversation. So there are definitely, different ways that we can make sure that we're doing that. So we're not sedentary, which many of us became sitting at home during the pandemic.
Exactly.
The last thing is therapy of those 5 things that you listed that
Yes.
we often do.
And I always recommend therapy. And it's not always in the talking form. There's group therapy, which is incredible. There's just so many different forms of therapy, but I implore people to try it. Sometimes it's one of the things that people think, is out of their reach, or that they're not in need of, but it's not until you try it that you realize, it's sometimes good to speak to other people that are outside of your network, that are professionals, to help you. But as of course, I put a guide in the book on how to do that safely, which is incredibly important, as well. So yeah, therapy is a massive part of the wellness journey. It's a massive tip that I would implore everyone to discover. There's art therapy, there's movement therapy, there's talking therapy. There's so many different types. And, as human beings, we're still discovering so much more. So why don't more Black people, African people, African American, however you identify, person of color, why are we not accessing it? What is the boundary, or what is a barrier for you?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's so important. And I'm thinking of there is like gardening therapy or
Oh,
agricultural therapy.
yes.
I mean, there's so many different ways. So it doesn't just have to be where you go and lay down on the couch and tell all your business, which a lot of Black people and Black families don't believe in it, especially our parents. Be like, oh no, we don't do that. Tell our business. I'm like, that's part of the problem. We don't tell our business enough in the right space. So we're holding things that we shouldn't hold on to. But yes, and just, as we finish up, I know that you mentioned in the book several times Audre Lorde. She is an icon to many of us. So if there is a particular quote or anything from of hers that you'd like to share, or just what it is that you love about her, or how she informs your work, that we would love to hear it.
There's so much. She has a quote, I can't remember it. It's in the book, if you allow me to bring it up, but it talks about resistance. It talks about resistance being like our power. Let me just bring it up if you don't mind. Yeah. So the resistance of, so joy as being an act of resistance, I think that is so important. And I say that as someone of my generation that's seen people come before me that, they were able to be joyful, but in certain groups. But being able to share that in all different ways, whether that's physically, intellectually, I just think it's important for us as human beings, but also as Black women. I can speak for us, or speak with us. I just think it's really important for us to find our joy and use it as
Yes.
an act of resistance. To look at our well-being as an act of resistance. All of these things are acts of resistance because, our forebearers weren't able to do that. It's a form of healing. They had to do it in a certain way. It had to be, you know, tailored in a way that wouldn't get them in trouble. So to be able to express that and to embody it is just really powerful. And I think that's probably one of the biggest quotes from her that really like hit home. And being able to, safely source out joy is just, it's incredible. It's something that everyone should have because as human beings, we deserve it. We need it.
Yes, I would agree. And that is a perfect way to finish up. So, Chloe, in terms of the things that you have going on, of course, all of your places where people can connect with you have been scrolling at the bottom. But if are there any like virtual events that are going on that those of us over here in the US or wherever we're joining from can tap into, or just anything that we can be on the lookout for from you in the months and weeks and months ahead?
Yeah, for sure. So my business thyself is going through a bit of a rehaul. It's been 5 years, can't believe it. So it's thank you. It's been 5 years and I have no understanding of business really. I haven't been taught it. So I'm really just finding my feet. So to have it for 5 years is, pat on the back and thanks to my community and everyone for showing up and supporting. But what I would say is no buts actually, but just make sure you click follow, you sign up to our mailing list. We're doing so much. So we're going to be rolling out a lot more programs, a lot more access to wellness. We're not going with all of the bigger companies. We're not always asking for their support, but definitely that's not what we're doing going forward. We are taking it all in-house. We are creating the programs that we want to see and hopefully a few courses. So yeah, just make sure that you go onto thyself, whether that's our website, which is thy.self.space currently, or you click through on our Instagram and sign up to the mailing list, be aware of what's going on, tap into our community, get involved, get talking. And yeah, that would be incredible. I just want to see that grow.
Yes. And of course, buy the
Oh,
book.
yes.
Buy
Yes,
the book.
keep buying the book.
Yes. And, if you're already, and this is just my suggestion, if you're already in a community or or you have a sister friend, a family member, I think that this is something that you could go through as, this is a more informal type of book club, but I
Yes.
mean, you could really dive into it and like go through the chapters and, as a part of that community building. And there is a level of accountability when you do it with a friend or two or more. So I would suggest that this book is a beautiful book. It's very well written. I love it, Chloe. And as I said, personally, it resonates with me just based upon some of the personal things that I have been really giving thought to. So I can appreciate it's been out for a few months, but I read it right on time. Put it that.
Oh, amazing. And it's one of those things, I want it to be something that you can go back to and say, I know there's a quote in there, or I know that there's a passage in there that I can relate to, or that my friends are going to relate to, or my family is. So it's one to keep on the shelf, I believe, forever. I can't wait for my son to read it and to dissect it in his own way and to share it with his friends. I hope it will last that amount of time. So
I am sure that it will. It will be now a part of the canon. How about that?
Yes, I love
So
that.
that. So thank you again for joining us. If you could just hold on for me for 1 second, I'm going to make the announcement for what's coming next. But thank you again for being here. And we will hopefully see you when you come out with either another big project or the next book. I'm putting that out there. So you're always welcome here in this space.
Thank you.
Thank you. So just hold on for me for one moment. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this wonderful conversation with Chloe. Please, as I have shared and she has shared, be sure to pick up a copy of the book. Be sure to follow her on social media and learn more about this important work that she's doing, and also be inspired to learn how to take care of yourselves and, create loving and safe spaces as well. Now, just as means of announcement, normally I'm here on Wednesday evenings at 8 o'clock, but for the next 2 weeks, which would be September 6th and 13th, I will not be online live. However, what I will be doing is sharing out some of our previous conversations or clips of some of the previous conversations we've had with the women in the Live Well Sister space, as well as just sharing out some tips, because we're going into September and we are going to call this Self-Love September here at Brown Girl Collective and Live Well Sisters. So we'll be sharing just a lot of good tips, or other people like Chloe who have great information to share with us. So I look forward to seeing you live again on September the 20th. But in the meantime and in between time, please continue to live well, sisters, and the few brothers that watch as well. All right, until later, take care.